Alex Chika Okafor, who is the chairman and CEO Chicason Group. Good afternoon, welcome, sir. We also have Mr. Emeka Ugwu-Oju. Mr. Emeka Ugwu-Oju is the founder of NESH, that's Nigerian Entrepreneurship Summit and Honors. You're welcome, sir. Ugwu-Oju. Ugwu-Oju. Beg your pardon? Good afternoon, you're welcome, sir. We also have Dr. Cosmas Ohaka. Dr. Cosmas Ohaka is the managing partner, Development Strategy Center, Enugu, also in our panel. A round of applause as approaches. Okay, now so I'll hand over to the moderator, Professor Okeke Uzodike, for the ease of doing business in Nigeria and sharing experience.
Good day, everyone. Good day, everyone. I think after lunch, there's a bit of lethargy that is out there. I hope that we'll do a bit of justice to this. As you can see, the panel has been sort of reworked a bit. When I first learned about this particular panel, I was really very, very excited. I'm still excited, but there is a difference in terms of the composition from the point of view that many of those who were supposed to be here were individuals who are actively involved in the productive side of business activity within the country. These are really important fellows within the business sector in Nigeria. Still, we have a very important player in the industry and individuals like myself who have made a bit of a habit of trying to analyze what's happening within the country. So I beg your indulgence as we try to get this going. The issue of ease of doing business is a paramount one for us in this country. The African Heritage Institution has been a player in this, going back well over a decade, with some of the early publications that have actually been done on the issue of business environment within the country. The reality is, and I really appreciate the almost triumphalist position about the World Bank, the World Bank doing business in Nigeria 2018 publication. We were a part of it. We did the survey for them, but the idea or something that appears to have taken a bit of salience was the idea that Nigeria is actually out of the woods, that things are really changing. But the question really is, to what extent are they really changing? Yes, they are changing. There have been clear signals that gradually, but I think grudgingly, these changes are being sort of brought in, but they're being brought in way too slowly in terms of what is needed, in terms of where the country is, in terms of, when you think in terms of poverty, we are getting more poor. And one of the areas that can actually change this is opening up opportunities, allowing the energies that we've talked about in this country, particularly within the Southeast, to drive development. As long as these are not happening at the rates that they're supposed to be happening, because many of the things that are actually blocking business development are definitely manageable issues. These are things that could be reworked easily if the state managers themselves began the work of truly embracing the idea that business environment should be improved on. That is what we would like to see happen. I appreciate very much, I don't want to belabor the matter because it's not really about me. We've got a captain of industry here who I hope we can learn from. Part of what we are supposed to learn from these contributions is what has worked. What were the challenges? What is it that we can learn from it? So without actually belaboring the matter, I would like to turn to some of the colleagues to make contributions in terms of this. I would like to call on the man we know mostly as Chicason, of Chicason industry, Dr. Okafor, to make his input. Thank you.
Good day, everybody. Let me stand on the existing protocol. We are here to talk about ease of doing business in Nigeria, focused on Southeast. Being one of the pioneers, I started production in 1987, and to the glory of God, we have expanded so much. But we have problem, self-inflicted problem in Southeast. Number one, we talk about power. Power is not our main problem. Power is number two. Number one is security. In 1995, in Enugu alone, we had 54 industries. And they were all doing well. Yes, we were battling with power, but we were managing. But the thing that destroyed the whole business we have in Southeast is what we did ourselves. I'll give you 3 examples. Number one, between 1994 and 1998, there were every day between Onitsha and Nnewi, Enugu to Onitsha, Aba to Nnewi, Asaba to Onitsha, there must be armed robbery cases every day. All the customers that were buying goods from Nnewi and Onitsha, they will block them and rob them. From there, all the customers from Cameroon, Burkina Faso, Niger, Chad, even at the coast, that used to come to Nnewi and Onitsha to buy goods, they stopped coming. That was the beginning. As if that was not enough, the issue of kidnapping came. They kidnapped all the successful businessmen in Nnewi and Onitsha. Everybody ran away and closed their businesses and moved to Lagos. And it was after that that the price of property in Lagos tripled. Before then, a plot of land in Ugwu-Oju was selling for 6-7 million. It went to 40 million. Everybody ran away from Southeast. Who did this to us? We, our brothers, our own brothers. So, please, if we want to talk about ease of doing business in Southeast, that is our main aim of coming here today, we have to talk about security. I'm happy that the governors are now working together. Let them borrow from the example of Anambra State and they put security in the entire Southeast. I don't know whether we have seen some improvement in development in our villages. About 6 years ago, 5-6 years ago, you hardly seen anybody keeping sand to build new house. The moment you do it, they will come and kidnap your mother or your sister or your uncle or your brother. People stop building. People stop coming home. So the issue of security is number one. Then before we go to power, a company like ours, if not because we are highly diversified, we won't be in business. As I'm talking to you today, in 1991-94, we had 54 industries within Enugu zone. Today, we are not more than 6 that open shop. because of these issues. Remember that in the 70s and the early 80s, Nnewi was the biggest auto parts market in West Africa. It was because of this armed robbery that we lost the market to Lagos. That was number one. Then before the kidnapping came, then there are other issues. If you want to talk about easy of doing business in Nigeria, we have so many things to talk about. Another example, in 80s, in 90s, the 80s when we started palm kernel crushing, we were exporting our product to what we call palm kernel cake. We were exporting to Netherlands, UK, different part of Europe. At the stage, we became uncompetitive. Why? Our competitors in Malaysia will load a vessel of 150,000 metric tons in 1 week because of the facility they have at their port. Then in Port Harcourt, we are doing 4,000 tons and it will take 1 month. So before anybody will give you an offer, they were selling their PKC at 140, we are selling at 60. Then before they improved, they started selling 140, then we were selling 30. You know the reason? Before anybody will bring in vessel to come and carry our goods from Nigerian port, from Port Harcourt, he had to discount the demurrage of staying 1 month. After discounting the demurrage, then he can now give you offer. Whatever is left is your price. Then we stop exporting. We stop exporting. Again, most of you knew that in the 80s, businessmen from Southeast, we were doing better than people in Lagos. We were doing better. When we were, that time you have something like Interland in Aba, Onwuka, Nnanakala and all this. We have in Onitsha, we have like Ugwu and others. We are doing well. Suddenly, there was a change from 1983. If you import anything to Port Harcourt, if there's any small distance, the container will be seized. And all of us, we are forced to move to where? Lagos. The same thing we are not able to import and clear in Port Harcourt. We import it in Lagos, clear it in Lagos, and take it down to Aba. The things we are not able to clear in Port Harcourt or Calabar, we will import it in Lagos, transport it from Lagos to Onitsha and Aba and the new. That killed the whole business. Before the issue of power, in 5 years, we spent 9.6 billion on diesel in my company. When diesel was 100 and something naira, we are consuming 5 tankers a week because we don't have power. Now we have concluded to put a small captive power to take care of our national park. But how many companies can survive that? Because we are doing other things. That was why we were able to sustain the manufacturing in the Southeast. Out of 54 factories that were in production in 1991 to 1995, only six, and none of the 6 is doing full production. So if our governors will join hands together to tackle the issue of security first, then we have to talk to our brothers. Most of our brothers don't want to invest in Southeast again because of insecurity. If you know the amount of money we are spending to come to the East, anytime we are coming for function, you have to hire an army of police. You have to buy pickup too. Just for you to come that something is happening here in your village. You spend the money that you have used to help other people, to provide for your own security. So let me stop here. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Chicason, Dr. Okafor. Clearly, the issue of security has been a very crucial issue. Perhaps to a major extent it still is. I think he's well placed to really address that. I wondered as well as he talked about other forms of challenges that may face people like himself who are trying to engender the kinds of business developments that we are actually talking about. I hope that he will come back and speak to the issue of where things like infrastructure actually fit into this. The lack of roads. Earlier in the day, when somebody else was talking around the issue of, I think it was the vice presidential candidate, Peter Obi, who spoke around the issue of how the lack of roads actually constituted a major impediment to doing business in the country, certainly in the southeast. That area between Aba and Ohaka, the lack of adequate roads impeding the ability to move goods from one place to the other. If you produce goods that you can't export to the markets where they are needed, clearly that is also a problem. And there's also the issue of education. We have an education system that has been challenged in recent years due to lack of adequate funding, but beyond funding, management by those who actually run these institutions, that they themselves have actually not been doing as well as we would have liked in terms of ensuring that human capital development is in fact privileged in this country. There is no question that human capital development is a problem in the country. We produce an awful lot of people trained in the ways that we train them, but who are not readily able to be mobilized for industry. In other words, that the curriculum that we've been using, inherited from the British, and barely adjusted since, teaching people more theory than the practical things that they require, that those kinds of arrangements no longer sit well in the current environment that we are globally. And if we are going to be competitive, it's important that human capital development is in fact enhanced, and quite quickly. I have a few other colleagues here. I will let them respond to this particular issue. I want to ask a question of Dr. Ohaka. In terms of skills, issues like attitudes, where do you think, or what do you think are some of the key ingredients? Dr. Okafor here emerged from an environment where there are a whole lot of people who could be doing the kinds of things that he's doing. But he's one of them who actually emerged. What skills perhaps did he have, or might he have had, that enabled somebody like him to emerge and do the kinds of things that he's doing? He's employing a large number of people. He has different businesses in different areas. Are there particular skills that people here can possibly maybe find resonating that somebody like him would have had to make him the person that he is?
Yeah, thank you very much, sir. And I want to stand on the existing protocol. Talking about skills, first of all, for you to successfully run a business, you must have entrepreneurial skills. And all through the discussions today, we've always insisted that Igbos have that entrepreneurial spirit. So we are taking it for granted that we have entrepreneurial spirit. But then, beyond that, beyond having that spirit, there are so many other things that we're supposed to do. Unfortunately, down here we believe that money is the issue. That once you have money, you can do it. Unfortunately, money is not all that we need. First of all, we need that can-do spirit. We need that spirit to say, oh yes, I want to do this and I can do it. And those of them in the industry can tell you that it's not just about money. You might have 10 million naira today. If you don't have the ideas, you don't know what to do, and you don't have that determination to get that business working, to surmount the challenges that are going to face along the way, then you see that money filtering away from your hands. Then talking about the challenges in business, from the research point, we've done a lot of studies and we found out that one of the things that are inhibiting businesses in this part of the country is multiple taxation. We have seen it in our studies that whereas in the West, they have fewer taxes, fewer forms of taxes. They make more money in terms of IGR than we have here, where we have a whole lot of taxation, a lot of forms of taxation in our different states. We heard the man from UAE tell us that they don't pay tax. I was amazed that they have no taxation, and yet the economy is booming. Now here we have a lot of things that we have a lot of subheads. Unfortunately, most of the monies that are collected through taxes go into private pockets. So while government is kind of stifling businesses by bringing all forms of taxations, it is not generating the required revenue or the expected revenue from these taxes. Can we begin to think of saying, okay, since these taxes are not coming to government coffers as we expect, can we keep them aside and see if we can improve or encourage businesses to grow? Now, talking about infrastructure, one thing we are trying to do is we have a Southeast that we're trying to have a kind of a unified way of doing things to be able to push this Southeast economy. But we are not unified. There's no governance structure that kind of channels every effort of the different state governments of the Southeast towards one direction, so that we know that this is what we are looking at. The infrastructure that the different state governments are building, the roads they are building, what are the motives behind some of these infrastructure? Are they building roads to lead to strategic areas where we want the economy to go? Are we building infrastructure in such a way that at the end of the day, what each state is doing dovetails into having that particular thing that we want to achieve as Southeast? So that synergy is very important. Luckily, we have Southeast governors, so we have a place where they meet. But we need to begin to encourage them to think Southeast in terms of one, not the different states. If you are building a road, the former governor of Anambra talked about road between Aba and Port Harcourt. The roads in Anambra could be good, but if you cannot leave Anambra to get to Port Harcourt, then the businessman also has a problem. If the man in Imo cannot get to Aba because the roads are bad, whatever is happening in Aba cannot positively affect Imo State. So we must begin to think about how these people can synergize. How can they work? The governors, the governments. Let's have a meeting of maybe the commissioners for works and those who are in charge of infrastructure. Think alike, think towards one direction. If we want to say we want to encourage our people to export, then from where do we want to export? Is it from the Port Harcourt ports? Then the road infrastructure to the port should be good. The rail infrastructure to the port should be okay. So that at the end of the day, if you are producing Newi or Onisha or Abakaliki or Umaya or wherever, you can access that port. Otherwise, we'll just be going around the circle and not much will happen. And again, let's think Southeast. Think of how to remove some of these impediments to doing business, especially multiple taxation. Thank you.
I think he raised a number of crucial points. The issue of multiple taxation and the issue of the lack of policy articulation. That our policies are not properly articulated across states so that they can actually feed each other and make contributions to regional development. It's a very crucial point. On the issue of multiple taxation, let me interject a bit there on why it is that we should actually be very careful in terms of the level at which we start taxing people. There is a problem frequently across many of our states. The fight or the struggle to get to bring in revenues should have certain control points. A key case in point here is the tendency to tax people who are actually at the survival level. When you have government officials chasing people around, people who are not getting any kind of social security, there is no kind of support system available to them. But they are being chased around, they cannot put a small store somewhere on the side of the road to actually sell something, things that enable them to just live. And they are being chased around by government officials. It's almost sinful, to be honest. And there has to be a point where poverty-related issues are actually borne in mind. You are not giving them any sort of service. You're not giving them basic food or resources, but they cannot sell oranges and small things just to survive and take care of their families. But you want to tax them, and sometimes to tax them at multiple points. Why? There has to be a point. You know, and when this sort of thing is going on within our communities, and we turn around and blame Abuja for creating poverty, there is a problem there. So the issue that Dr. Okafor talked about what we do to ourselves comes in as well. That we must be very careful and thoughtful about the policies that we actually put in place and encourage to persevere. Thank you. I will now pass the mic to my colleague.
Thank you. I'm just looking at the time. Our time is up. So I'll just spend maybe 2 minutes to say a few things. I'm here because of Mike Abani, because they see me as a Southeast, South advocate, not just Southeast. I avoid being publicly identified with any of the two zones, but doing a few things from background. Basically, what we should be looking at is solutions. I think Chicason, the man on ground, as far as manufacturing is concerned, has brought a human face to some of the challenges facing businesses here in the past, currently, but we are more interested in the future. And that's the issue of doing business practice, which I think Mark himself put up a chart to see at least how the 5 states in the Southeast have been doing. And I know that on my table was somebody from Imo State, and he was saying, I'm looking at all the ticks, and it looks like Imo State was just one tick amongst some of the boxes that are there. Which boils down to something, and we always need to address the issues and stop, beating about the bush, and they will say. We know what is required in terms of ease of doing business. It's not how to do it, how to get it done, move from point A to point B. And we talk about in the Southeast, but now based on the current political structure that we have, from the public sector side, a lot depends on maybe who you call the chief executive. So, of course, you can't give what you don't have. So it means that, as just Peter was saying, that governance these days is like you manage it like if you're managing your business. So that means you have to have people running the states, and some of the people who support them, people who really understand what it means to run a state as a business. If you don't have that in place, we could just stop from morning till night and come back here the next year and we meet the same things. Because it's very straightforward. We know what the issues are. It's just to get from point A to point B. But what is lacking is the leadership that will see things the way all of us would want to see. If everybody does enough to make sure that we have that type of leadership in place, I'm sure when we come back here next year, we will say that, okay, if we are at X point, that we have moved to X number of points, and maybe in 5 years, we will be competing with City in terms of ease of doing business. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I will allow Dr. Chicason to have a final word.
Thank you very much. Why I didn't want to talk about financing and other things is something that we always hear. Anytime you talk about ease of doing business, financing will be one of them, power will be one of them. But we have some key things that nobody noticed. That was why I wanted to talk about them. My advice is this. Now, if the governors have decided to work together, then they have to have a master plan on how to develop Southeast. So that if it's happening in Anambra, it will happen in Imo. If it's happening in Imo, it will happen in Abia. Then we see ourselves as brothers and sisters. We have other issues that we are not going to discuss here because of time. And but the man sees an Anambra man as an enemy. He can accept, and a man can accept an Indian more than an Anambra man. An Enugu man can welcome an Indian more than an Anambra man. So these are some of the things we have to discuss with our governors, but it's not a talk of today. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Please put your hands together. We know we always want more time, but time is the one thing that nobody can buy, no matter how rich they are. Ask Warren Buffett, he will tell you. I'll take 2 questions, if there are any. Remember, a question has a question mark at the end. There's no political statements, none of your own theories. I'll take one question from Madam and one question from there. Let me start at the back and move forward.
Good day, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Chika from the Enugu State Investment Development Authority. My question is, so much has been said about what government should do. I think my question is directed to Dr. Okafor. How much are the private sector doing in terms of, when you say ease of doing business, one of the impediments is access to funds, especially for the small businesses. How much are big businesses like the Chicason group doing in terms of venture capitalists for young businesses and businesses that are starting? Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Coincidentally, the question I wanted to ask is not asked by the young man, but I've asked her to it. She's asking Dr. Okafor to tell us a bit about the venture capital for young businesses. But Dr. Okafor, I'm asking you because when we discuss what we've been talking about, venture capital, we're hearing it, we're excited, but the practitioner, please, could you just elaborate for us your own experience and others in your group, your experience of venture capital?
But some people don't know about that. So that's what we're trying to do with our program for young entrepreneurs, which hopefully by 2019 we'll try and do a bit more in the Southeast. Thank you.
In regard to the question asked by Dr. Pascal Dozie, I've got two-pronged sort of answer. The first, from the university point of view. but from the university angle. I think it's fair to say that there is a bit of a disconnection between our universities and the business sector. There isn't enough interaction going on between them. This is why, for instance, universities teach courses, subjects, and graduate students that are not fit for purpose when it comes to being in the actually being ready to take up jobs immediately. That they have to go in when hired and get retrained, really. And this, it happens across a wide range of areas. What's actually happening globally within the education sector has not been embraced by universities in Nigeria generally. Where those things are beginning to happen, it's in the private institutions. Some of the better private institutions, some of the other private institutions are actually replicating what's happening in universities. So the universities are not talking to businesses, and businesses are not talking to universities about the sort of people that they actually need to be graduating. So it is a fundamental problem to start with. I think when that begins to happen, it becomes possible for the kind of important research that I think you are pointing to should be happening, and it should be happening almost automatically. It shouldn't be something that anybody would need to actually impel university students and staff to try and engender. The other thing is, in terms of that lack of linkage, in many societies, business people invest in universities. They make contributions in universities to actually move research in the direction that suits them. Here, it's not happening. I'm not seeing many endowments occurring, and it ought to be happening, that efforts should be made to actually empower universities, departments, and saying, we are giving this scholarship for this sort of subject, or for these kinds of research. It's not happening. The other side of it, again, has to do with what somebody earlier talked about, the growing disjuncture between us and the younger people. Our own culture is actually not being preserved, it's not being enhanced, and we are seeing a growing sort of movement away from our cultural values. That needs to be redone. We need to actually think very seriously about this. Until we do these kinds of things, where we begin looking at what's really important. Dr. Abani is harassing me right now. Until we begin looking at finding ways to engender a bit of a cultural renaissance, we will be in problem. I'm being asked.
There's a question the lady asked. If we can take that answer.
The question about women owning stores in the market. There's no issue with that. We have a lot of women owning stores in the market. The women in this hall can bear witness to that. We don't have issues. This part of the country, we don't have issues with women having stores. There could be isolated cases, but there's no widespread issue of women.
I'm going to have to bring this to an end at this point, but I will tell you that most of the women will not agree. I'm not going to allow a debate to take place now. I'm sorry, because of time. But I know specific examples were given in Ohaka to the point that we had to bring out the Supreme Court judgment that says that women can inherit land like men. I want to challenge all the men in this room. Make sure your will gives your daughter equal rights with your sons. That's the step to take. Let's stop talking, let's start doing. Many of you have to stand guarantees for the women before they will get their rent on their property. This is the reality of the situation. We continue to deny it. So please, I want to get involved because we will always lose the argument with the women and we have another session to do. But it's a very real issue. Thank you very much, Professor and the panel. Please put your hands together for them.